Hiya, and welcome back to Far Beyond the World, the game that teaches us that even Batman is scared of Undyne. That was awful. I cannot think of much. Hiya! I cannot think of much else to say, so let's just hop right in. I just sit there, stunned, looking at this new place I found myself in. Where the fuck am I? It takes a while for the reality of it all to sink in. I struggle to grasp all of what's happening, but eventually I gather the strength to move. Despite the window being cracked open and the obvious breeze ruffling the curtains, the air is oddly heavy. My legs, as she indicated, feel rather funny, and I have to pay extra attention with each step. I slowly approach the desk, pushing away a bundle of weighted balloons. There I find my change of clothes folded neatly on the chair. Only now it appears to me to actually check what I'm wearing. It's a dark blue pajama set with a bunch of full moons and stylized wolves howling at them. I pull up the top ever so slightly as to uncover my abdomen. The scar where I was stabbed is replaced with stitches. Was I operated on? I feel so confused. I look at the desk, trailing an assortment of different wishing cards, picking up a few at random. Get well, we miss you loads. Yours, V. Can't wait to see you again. You're the best. XXX, Cora. What? Are those meant to be my friends? There's so many things I need to tell you. I hope we'll get another chance. From the looks of it, I have at least a dozen, each more elaborate and heartfelt than the other. Was it really all just a dream? It couldn't have. No, it doesn't feel right. My heart begins to race in desperation, and I quickly look to the shelves for answers. There's a teddy bear with a green plaid bow next to an action figure. I pick up the plastic warrior, carefully inspecting the details. He's uncomfortably reminiscent of Ranoc, almost as if he were his blueprint. There's even a dandelion and a Celtic knot badge stuck to the cork board. God fucking damn it. God fucking damn it. A cold shiver shoots down my spine and the horror of it all begins to sink in. I've made it all up. All of it. Oh God, this is too cruel. I cover my trembling lips, now flanked by two warm streams of tears. I feel numb and hollow, my heavy chest slowing my breath to a near standstill. I've met someone I love and care about only to have it be my own delusion. Most likely fueled by some fucking game. I cast my hateful gaze towards a stack of different titles and grab a few. Medieval Knight, Werewolf the Full Moon, Dating Simulator. It all makes sense. But as I shuffle the boxes with growing panic, a slither of memory pierces through the darkness. I open one of the plastic lids and narrow my eyes in confusion. It's a CD. When I think of games, I think of CDs, but I can't remember the last time anyone used one. I blink away the tears, my mouth slightly open in shock as I look to the upper shelves. A globe and some class books. Geography 2, Algebra, Biology. I chuckle at the realization that those are school textbooks, not college ones, but high school at best. Why would I have those? But above it all, on a place of honor, a generic first-place trophy overlooks the room. I strain my sore muscles to reach up for it, but eventually I have it in my grasp and I bring it down for a closer inspection. First place for the excellence in sports. What sports? I'm as athletically inclined as a couch potato. My eyes instinctively venture towards the leather glove with a ball nestled inside of it. Is it to say I play baseball? I shake my head in disbelief and put the cup down onto the desk, brushing the chair out of my way. If anything can clear this up, it's definitely the computer. I press the power button and to my surprise, it starts making the most unexpected sound. A bunch of beeps preceded by mechanical screeching and hissing noises. Is that a dial-up tone? But just as I think this cannot get any more absurd, the screen goes full on Matrix on me. Lines of green gibberish flood the display from top to bottom. The computer won't be of any help. Kaylin, hurry up and change, dear. I look towards the door where the woman posing as my mom calls from. Reluctantly, I reach for the clothes she prepared but still trace the corkboard for answers. There's a post-it note with no clear date. Friday, Bestie's birthday. Remember to bring a gift. Is that meant to be my handwriting? What sort of a maniac would leave a note like that? Also, if I needed a reminder, I would have set it up on my mobile phone. I know mobile phones! I nearly exclaim in excitement. I had one, I'm sure. I might not remember owning one, but I'm absolutely certain they are a thing and that majority of people couldn't get by without one. This shit is ancient. I nearly laugh at the ridiculous desktop I'm presented with. At first glance, that's exactly what I would picture if someone asked me what a computer looks like. But I know they're no longer, well, this. I look towards the two Polaroids pinned in place as I put my pants on. Hello, bestie. I mutter cynically, rubbing my face of any remaining tears and giving a contemptuous look towards the bland youth next to me on a generic beach day photo. Then my eyes wander to my holiday memento. Eiffel Tower. Of course I'd be in France. If you think of a random posh holiday abroad, where else would you be? Well, that or Rome, I suppose. But as I button up the top of my shirt, I can't help but laugh at the medal. I gently pull it away from the board and inspect both sides. First place again. This one for being the best. Of course. But the biggest killer is the acceptance letter. Apparently I got into Harvard. Lucky me. I roll my eyes unenthusiastically. This is some wannabe wish fulfillment. There's even an express train ticket to get to Boston from wherever this is. Which is fuck knows where, but upon closer inspection, the ticket is valid from any station. Smooth. But I think I spoke too soon on what's too much in this cabin of curiosities, because the actual killer is what I've just put on. I've been so preoccupied with all this bullshit that I didn't even pay attention to what I was changing into. It's a freaking school uniform. None of this makes any goddamn sense. Kaylin? The mother calls out, this time more impatiently, so I decide to humor this charade. But as I'm about to open the door, I'm stopped by a giant keep out sign. At first it almost feels like a warning, but then I realize that all of this stuff is slightly off place. If you think of a teen's room, this sort of sign will be the first thing to come to mind. But if you don't know where it should go, it's a 50-50 chance it'll end up on the wrong side. I carefully cast a last glance over the bedroom and realize there's no medical equipment. Unless I was in an induced coma. At least a drip would have made sense. How else did she feed me? Like a faux gras duck? I definitely mispronounced that. I chuckle, shaking my head, and open the doors with newfound confidence. I'm not sure where to go, but I follow the sound of the gentle hum made by the strange woman. The air is continuously stifling as I pull on my collar. There seems to be something in it that I can't put my finger on, but it's there, almost choking me. As I walk through a small hallway, I notice odd porcelain figures resembling Wizard of Oz characters littering the place. That's because they're just that. There's Dorothy, Toto, there's the Tin Man, even the Cowardly Lion and the Scarecrow. Come to think of it, the mother wears Alice's outfit too. It almost feels like a collage of my random thoughts. I smile, noticing a rotary dial phone standing on one of the shelves. Again, perfect example of what a phone is. When was the last time I saw one like it? This whole place is trying hard to sow the breadcrumbs of my memory trail. It's an obvious construct made without any understanding, and this knowledge emboldens me to face whatever comes next. Okay, modern. Before I enter the kitchen, I'm stopped by a discreet yet discernible scent reaching my nose. It's barely tangible, but I take a deep inhale. I'm sure it's there. Lavender. I blink my eyes, looking around in confusion. There's a scent of lavender in the air, and as I scan the room adjacent to the hallway, I can see odd bouquets of those purple flowers dotting the place. I'm sure they weren't there before. Huh. I take a puzzled step into the kitchen, causing the other mother to finish her song. She turns on the heel with a big, wide smile, putting down a bowl she was just fiddling with. There you are. Don't you look smart? What's with all the lavender? I point towards another bouquet standing in the middle of the kitchen table. Don't you just love it? She shrugs happily. They're my favorite. The smell is just divine. They weren't there just a moment ago. Oh, another one of your games? How fun. The woman laughs me off and returns to face the counter. I take a reluctant seat, looking at the flowers with doubled suspicion. Why didn't I smell this before? To be honest, I've got so used to them that I forget half the time they're even there. She shrugs, whipping something energetically inside the bowl. I feel so helplessly confused that I simply sit there, listening to her resumed humming. But the scent intensifies as it feels calling out to me. I reach out to one of the stray stalks, and just as I touch the petals, the entire floret completely disintegrates into thin air, like it was never there. What the? Is everything alright, love? It's hard to breathe, I mutter, getting slowly overwhelmed by the scent. It's as if someone doused the entire place with lavender perfume. I might have overdone it a little. She pats her cheek in a troubled expression and immediately proceeds to open the windows. Here, let me take these. The woman smiles and grabs the vase from the table. I don't know why, but I don't want her to take it away, so I reach out towards her arms. What's the matter, honey? Where are you taking them? Oh, just to another room. I'll be right back. As she disappears behind the door frame, the sweet floral aroma suddenly vanishes, replaced by a vague scent of fresh air. I can't speak. I look towards the open windows with suspicion, watching as the blinds bob on the wind. The smell might be gone, but the air is just as heavy as it was. When she returns, she pats my head and begins to hum again. For some reason, I get a really troubling vibe from her. I'd much rather be back with... Oh fuck, what was the Grey Wolf's name? I close my eyes, rubbing my temple and straining to remember. How could I possibly forget it this fast? Damn her obnoxious humming. It almost feels as if it's scrambling my thoughts and makes it harder to recall things. Mother? I mutter, drawing her attention and ending her siren's call for just a moment. I've decided that I've had enough of games. Something's not right. I know this isn't right. Everything's fine, Kaylin. Soon you'll feel back at home. You'll see. Can't really feel at home with you having buttons for eyes. Very funny, Coraline. She responds to my joke with a soft chuckle, but something about it feels off, almost as if my very own ghost children were telling me to run. At times like these, I'm glad I've consumed as much pop culture as I did. I need to go back. I state sternly, continuously preventing the woman from humming. Go back where? To... I struggle, desperate to speak up his name. To Ranoc! I exclaim with satisfaction through a strained huff. I want to go back to Turnin. At first, she looks at me in slight shock, but then gives me a pitiful smile. Sweetie, I don't know what any of that means. I know you do, and I want you to let me go. Ranoc needs me. You're not a prisoner, dear. I'm not keeping you here. She splays her arms in feigned surrender. If Ranoc's one of your new friends, then by all means, I don't object to you hanging out. Just as long as he's not a bad influence. Is he one of the foreign exchange students? The name sounds awfully funny. He's not an exchange student. He's a wolf. Oh. The woman clicks her lips and looks at me with pity. I can't remember the last time we went to the zoo, but if you want to... Not that kind of wolf. He's a chief's son and an alpha, and we're heading out to Strandbart tomorrow. I reiterate, not much for her sake, but to ensure I haven't forgotten anything in between her hellish humming. Fancy that. She shrugs and waves her hand at me. It was all just a dream, Kaylin. Soon you'll forget all about it. I don't want to forget about it. I jump up, slamming my hands into the table and yelling out in equal part frustration and desperation. But the woman only shakes her head dismissively, and to my complete surprise, she shoves a hastily made sandwich in my face. You're awfully moody today. Must be the hunger. Here, have a PBJ. What? I blink, grabbing the food in utter confusion. I thought we were having pizza. Well, I figured we could wait for Dad a little while longer. After all, he works so very hard to provide for us. Everything she says is so odd and surreal. It feels like I'm losing myself in this play pretend. I look to the generously loaded sandwich, seeing as a mixture of jam and peanut butter nearly drips down to the floor, and my stomach grumbles. I am quite hungry. But before I take a bite, a question occurs to me, and I blurt it out almost without even thinking. What does Dad do for a living? I'm sorry? The woman faces me, taken slightly aback. Work, Mom. As you know, my memory isn't so great. I poke my temple, still toying with the sandwich. I can see her eyes lock on my mouth, and she rubs her hands nervously, almost as if waiting for me to take a bite. Her ring is on the wrong finger now that I think about it. Mom, what does Dad do? Aren't you hungry? She asks through an awkward smile, and I shake my head, putting down the PBJ. Whatever is in it, I will sooner starve than eat it. I'll wait. You worked so hard on my favorites, I don't want to ruin my appetite. Right, of course. Her voice is now less chirpy. So, what does Dad do? Your father does business. He's very successful. Doesn't really look like it. I nod towards a middle-class looking house. So what does he do exactly? I just told you. Business. She smiles again and returns to face the counter, chopping at some carrots energetically. But carrots don't go on pizza, unless we're in California. They'll put anything on a pizza there, but this place doesn't fit the bill. Doesn't fit any bill now that I think about it. No, very much we're still not in Kansas. We're not anywhere, really, and my only chance of getting out is to break through the charade. Seeing that I have no other choice, I decide to push further and make this prison escape unravel. Yes, you said that, but what kind of business? Business is business, as they say. You don't know then? A loud clang startles me as she slams the knife against the board and turns to me with a less amused expression. Dearie, let's just give your little games a rest for now, She bobs the knife in my direction, and I swallow nervously. After all, you have more important things to worry about. School starts tomorrow, and you have much catching up to do. Whoever this other mother is, she's trying desperately hard to keep up her facade, but the jig is up. Okay, no, enough. What is this? I ask calmly, causing her to face me once again. She puts away the knife, corrects her dress, and tidies up her hair almost as if remembering her part. What happened, honey? Are you still feeling ill? The woman tries to reach out to me, but I jump out of the way as if the floor were lava. Get away from me! Let me just check your temperature. I'm not fucking ill. I yell out in anger. Of course you are. I died. I know I did. Now I'm more certain of it than ever before. I am not dreaming, nor am I in a coma. I lived, and I died, and now I live again. As crazy as it sounds, it makes more fucking sense than whatever this is meant to be. This is your home, she states matter-of-factly. This isn't real. You aren't real. It's the medication. You're just confused. I'm confused? I laugh out at the creature with utter contempt. If you think the shitty illusion is going to keep me in here, you're mistaken. You might be able to fuck with my mind and fish there for some snippets of memories, but your clunky attempts at reconstructing anything even remotely realistic are laughable. Her face grows now more stern, yet she remains the act. Maintains the act. Young mister, you do not speak to your mother like this. I've worked very hard. Stop. I demand calmly. You are not my mother, and this isn't my home. Kaylin, you're breaking my heart. She clasps her chest in a last-ditch attempt to emotionally blackmail me, but I'm immune to her tears. You have none. You aren't real. I call out, taking another step back. School? Really? What sort of lunatic would send their child to school a day after they woke up from a coma? Are you calling me a bad mother? Is that it? Your rebellious phase? The woman continues, but I'm having none of it. She's acting like a game character whose dialogue options are glitching. This is pathetic. I am not a damned teen. You're just throwing a bunch of buzzwords with absolutely no context to them. Just like this place. Bunch of generic shit thrown in together. I spread my arms with scornful laughter. It looks exactly what an alien would come up with after browsing the internet for reference. Good damn it. Whatever you are, you're not from my world. And whatever this is, it ends now. Oh, it ends, does it? Her voice turns unnaturally chilly. Finally, the game is over. Such a clever little boy. You think you don't like me? What was his name? Stephen King bullshit is this? I freeze up watching her form darken, elongate, and twist, just like the beldame. In fact, with her transformation, the entire house seems to wrap onto itself. Her bony fingers gently pat the table, clicking as if they were made of glass, while she utters a frigid, otherworldly whisper. Its sound pierces my mind like 1,000 needles, and I barely contain a scream. Well, wait until you see your father. Despite a cold shiver running down my spine, I try to remain calm. I won't be afraid. This thing is clearly feeding on my memories and emotions. I won't see anything. I'm going back. There is no running away, Kaylin. She snickers, extending her bony fingers towards me to entice some terror, but I'm long beyond that. Just let Mommy take care of you. We wouldn't want to be disciplined, would we? I had Volgar's snarling muzzle inches from my throat as he was choking the life out of me. I was stabbed and then nearly killed by the chief. You think you're scary? You're reenacting a children's book. Oh, but I feel your heart dance to my tune, boy. You can't hurt me, can't I? She smiles wickedly, accepting the challenge. Within a split second, the creature rushes at me, brushing the kitchen table out of the way as if it were nothing. I run as I've never run before, pushing myself from the walls to take a sharp left towards the bedroom. In the nick of time, I slam the door and turn the lock, just as she crashes into them with considerable weight. I hear her bangs and wails as I slide to the floor. Fuck. Perhaps antagonizing that thing wasn't the best idea. I need to get out of here. But how? For a second, I think about throwing myself out of the window. But if I die here, do I die in real life? No, there's got to be another way. Naively, I just close my eyes and click my heels together. There's no There's no place like home. There's no place like home. I'll get you, my pretty, and your big wolf, too. The monstrous screeches intensify, and I begin to panic. Fuck! I need to get back. My heart spins out of control, and I'm already hyperventilating. I'm in the grips of another panic attack. Oh my god, this is not the time for that. I yelp out as a door bounces with another bang. Kaylin, come out, honey. It's time for your medicine, but this time there will be no spoonful of sugar to help it go down. She scratches again against the door with her clawed fingers, and I cringe at the sound. Come out, or I'll huff and puff. The creature is going to break in at any moment. I try to calm myself, but to no avail, only to remember how Ranoc managed to bring me down from a panic attack. Despite repeating the breathing exercises and squeezing my arms to mimic what he had done, it doesn't help. What I truly need is him. He was the one that calmed me. Wait, I need to follow my compass. Ranoc is my north. Ranoc is my anchor. With an anchor around a neck, the swimmers drown. Ignore her. I need to get back to him, back to the cabin. How do I get back? Rawr. The door bounces again. This time the hinge is audibly giving in as she issues an unnatural howl. I'm running out of time. Wait. Lavender! What? She stops momentarily, her attempted break-in, and with that one reaction, she gave away the key to my freedom. This is a dream after all, not a place. I get up to my feet. I saw you manifest the flowers the moment I grew aware of their smell. It was the residual scent of the florets left in the cottage. That's why you removed it. No. She growls like a banshee, tracing her sharp fingernail against the door. But you didn't remove it, not really. You made me think you did. No. She resumes her angered banging. Lavender. I need to focus on the scent of lavender. There it is. I can smell the sweet aroma once more, and the room begins to fade. No! The chirping of the birds reaches my ears, and her voice starts to fade away as well. No! The room grows darker and darker until I'm surrounded by utter nothingness once again. You will not get away from me! The being issues a roar filled with utter hatred and anger, but it's all quickly washed away by the feeling of an unexplained comfort. I ain't risking it. I smile as a slither of light pierces through the darkness, and I can hear the familiar sound of the forest intensify. I already have. Wake up. My body almost leaps at the chance to break free from slumber. You cannot keep him hidden in the waking world forever. At first I feel unsettled by that comment, but quickly the feeling of comfort returns. Wake up. The cold air rushes down my windpipe as I take a desperate inhale. I throw myself up, sitting in the bed, completely startled. Completely startled, touching my entire body and patting the bed beside me. Once I'm convinced enough that I'm back in the real world, I manage to calm down my erratic breathing. The bedding is soggy. I sweated a lot during my sleep. No wonder, I've spent the entire night locked in a mind game while physically enveloped by a furry wolf. Speaking of said wolf, I ain't risking it. Ranoc's nowhere to be seen, and I immediately fear he has left without me. I look towards the open window, which allows the fresh air to come in and mingle with the lingering scent of lavender florets. I never thought I'd be so happy to smell lavender, but here we are. Judging by the light, I don't think Ranoc has left yet. It's bright, not bright enough for it to be too close to noon, but way past sunrise, that's for sure. I shudder suddenly, startled by a creaking sound coming from up above. It's followed by some clunking, and it becomes clear someone's up there. Ranoc? I call out to the kitchen, hoping the wolf is about, but to my surprise, his voice comes from the ceiling. Kaylin, you're up? Yeah. I mutter, slightly choked up. I'm relieved to hear him. What are you doing? Okay. Why do I keep popping that up? Getting stuff ready for our departure. We need gear for the trip. You should have woken me up. My voice might carry slightly more annoyance than it should as I scramble to get out of the bed. You slept like a rock. I didn't want to disturb you. Well, you still should have. In truth, I wish he had, but then again, he might have not been able to pull me out of the stupor, and then he'd be all panicked. Perhaps it's best this way. Do you need any help? I ask, quickly locating various pieces of my garment dotting the floor, a memento of our rather passionate evening. I blush, reminiscing how close we've gotten to. Not really, but I wouldn't mind some company. Wolf pulls me back into reality, and I shake my head. Not the time to be getting horny again. I'll be right there. I begin to put my clothes on hastily, and once I'm presentable, I step into the kitchen only to stop at the entry and face the ceiling once again. How do I get up? There's a ladder at the back of the cabin. Oh, okay. I step outside and take a free, deep inhale of the forest air, enjoying the view for what it's worth. The beauty of the spot on which he built his house is more apparent than ever before, especially now that I got out of the hellscape I was trapped in. I don't even consider talking about what happened tonight. What would I even say that wouldn't be immediately brushed off as just a bad dream? Worse yet, if he actually believed me, he'd send me straight to Verissa for observation, and there would go our joint excursion. No, talking about this is not an option. Not now, at least. After all this pep talk about being self-reliant, it would be dumb for me to unload this stuff on the unsuspecting wolf. Hey, so, since we're dating, I need you to know that I'm possessed. Hope it's not a deal-breaker. I shake my head and snort at the mock-up confession. No. I'd much rather focus on being together and enjoying the time we have. Especially since so far, I'm having the upper hand and keep this stuff under control. Push comes to shove, I'll simply copy Verissa's markings. But for now, I'm here, free, taking in the glorious woods around me. I don't think I was ever this outdoorsy in my previous life, whatever it was, but this new experience grew on me unexpectedly quickly. Even you, Mr. Outhouse, you ain't that bad. I mumble towards the bushes, behind which rests the rustic toilet. Might be the least pleasant part of this old-timey way of life, but still much better than whatever the fuck I was presented with tonight. As promised, I'm greeted by a wobbly ladder scaling the back wall of the cottage and leading up towards a small door. I climb the pegs and squeeze myself in, wondering how on earth did Ranoc manage to get through. Ooh. At first, my eyes take some time to adjust to the dimly lit attic, but soon enough I can see that it's a small space filled with lots of different stuff. Ranoc's rested against the front wall, sitting beneath the only window and fiddling with a large piece of tawny brown cloth. What's up? My moondrop is up. He teases as I slowly crawl my way up towards him. I'm just making sure there aren't any tears. The last thing we need is getting wet on our journey. Yeah, I know my poor fluff doesn't like water. It's actually more for your comfort than mine. I finally get to snuggle into his chest and ruffle the gray fur. Hey, what's this? The wolf's rather surprised at my forwardness, but I don't care. After all that happened throughout the night, I just need to be held by him and feel his warmth, smell his scent. Soon enough, my silent wish is granted and he embraces me tightly, lifting my chin so that our gazes could meet. His kind green eyes look to me with love as he plants a quick lick across my lips. Slept well? I nearly choke at the absurdity of the question given the circumstance, but decide to simply shrug it off. So. I don't want to ruin the moment, nor to trouble him with whatever I'm going through. I'm getting more convinced that this is not madness, but yeah, not the time for it at the moment. I simply pull away gently as I look around the various gizmos littering the ground. Anything I can help with? Not really. I don't think you'd know where to start. Fair enough. I chuckle. So, I'll just settle myself in this corner and get out of your way. Good boy. Hey, that compliment goes the other way around. I narrow my eyes teasingly, causing his tail to thump against the wooden floor. The attic is surprisingly busy for a wolf whose house looks rather Spartan. So, heading out just the two of us? He smiles at me knowingly and narrows his brows. Indeed, we'll get some quality time together. What about your pack? They have a different task. With Tana leaving to find Delron, my father called all able-bodied wolves to deliver house summons. Vol left just before dawn. Oh. I respond rather mopey. I didn't get to wish him safe travels. Trust me, he was in no mood for talking. He nearly clocked me when I joked he's rushing off so early to avoid bumping into Regara. Yeah, that one seems a rather sore spot for him. Serves him right. Ranoc shrugs, ruffling the tent cloth to inspect another of the folds. He gets the taste of his own medicine. I'd even go as far to say Regara is much more tactful than he ever was with Verissa. I smile awkwardly. Doesn't take much to imagine how badly the Black Wolf butchers his attempts at wooing the female. I bet he's improving with time. He does with me. I flash my brows, drawing Ranoc's curious gaze. I mean, at first his instinct was to kill me on sight, to the point you had to shield me. Now he talks about killing me when he's annoyed. Vol's always annoyed. The wolf sneers in jest and I chuckle. I suppose, but not always with me. I say with some sense of confidence, and the wolf simply nods in concession. Vol might direct his outbursts at me, but I get a feeling it's more out of a habit than genuine dislike. With a short lull in the conversation, I look around the attic once again. There's a bunch of odds and ends up here, and with idle hands, I decide to check the nearest box. only to find an assortment of different chisels and tools. A true carpenter, I see. Not a professional. He shrugs modestly. Just something to pass the time with. Each wolf has a hobby. Maybe, but I doubt many made their own furniture. You'd be surprised. The wolf smiles, reaching up for the corners of the tent and slowly beginning to fold it up. There's not much need for stuff like that within the tribe, for anyone to make it their full-time profession, so we all just make do on our own. We don't even have a jeweler. The village smith has to double as one. You mean Regar's father? Yeah. He sighs. Truth be told, she's been slowly taking over his work. The wolf is getting too old for that profession. I quickly touch the emblem on my collar, petting it slightly. I don't find anything wrong with your crest. It's lovely. You enjoy it? I smile reluctantly, looking towards the exit as if I wanted to run away. I do, actually. As embarrassing as it is to admit, it makes me feel like I belong. You're not my prop... I know. I cut him off, facing him with a confident smile. I meant as in belonging at your side. Oh. He blushes slightly and looks away. Despite getting quite flustered, I can see his tail wagging happily behind his back. Maybe he can sense my heart rate, but I can read his moods just as well. So, what's up with that busted chair? I nod towards the broken, upturned seat, and Ranoc looks at it awkwardly. Oh, that? I meant to fix it, but quickly realized it wasn't sturdy enough. Might as well use it as firewood now. Those are claw marks. I grimace, pointing at the obvious signs of violence. Yeah, a token of one of Vol's many tantrums. He hurled it at me when Versa stayed the night. Simp. He thought that The wolf pauses, twiddling bashfully with his fingers but quickly shaking his head. But we didn't. Jeez, he's quite possessive of her. Yeah. He sighs in feigned amusement. Why was she staying the night, though? She doesn't strike me as a sleepover type of gal. She needed comforting and Cora was away with Delron's pack. The shaman just passed away and she was reeling from both his loss and her new appointment. Damn, if that was a perfect time for Vol to shine, it was then. Are you kidding? Ranoc snorts. The reason she came to me in the first place, despite all the rumors it would cause, is because the first thing he did is ask her to be his mate. He cornered her out in the open, smile ear to ear for everyone to see, ignoring completely the tribe's mourning. I cringe, imagining this scene caused and how distressed Versa had to be. That guy really doesn't have a clue, does he? Worst part, he barged in here while we were breaking fast, most likely spurred by the talk on the street. Without waiting for an explanation, he simply hurled that chair half across the room, nearly taking us both out with it. What? I gasp, half in shock and half in amusement that I'm even surprised. After all, I've experienced that side of him myself, but it's not something I'm going to share. Vol has enough bad rep as it is to deal with. Yeah, so when I tell you to stay out of his way at the moment, it's because I mean it. Anyway, I better hurry up with all this before Father sends the guards to fetch us. I laugh and nod, allowing him to get back to the task at hand without further distractions. Eventually, he finally gathers everything up and stuffs it neatly into a leather backpack. But the wolf doesn't stop there. He fetches a rope, some iron pins, and other odds and ends, filling the pockets to the brim, and I begin to worry about the size our luggage begins to grow with. As we leave the attic, I decide to voice my concerns. This is a lot of stuff. Are you sure we need all of this? My voice conveys doubt as I take hold of the burgeoning backpack he passes me from above. I struggle to place it down on the ground, causing the dangling metal pan and pot to clank merrily together. That's just the bedding and the tent cloth. What about this, then? I point to the hanging cooking utensils and the wolf shrugs. We need those. It's going to be a long trek and we must eat well. I'm not sure I'll be able to carry all of this. You'll have to. The wolf states plainly through a coy smile as he closes the attic door and slides down the ladder, landing on the ground with a dusty oof. Because what I'll be carrying, you'll definitely won't be able to lift. Okay. I mutter, intrigued by his comment. Come, let's get some quick grub and get ready and head for the villa. I nod reluctantly, trying to pick up the overloaded bag. I slump it over my shoulder and simply carry it, trying to catch up to the wolf. Once we're inside, Ranoc starts up the fire and cooks us up a solid breakfast, just like he did on my first day here. We need our strength for the roads, so eat up. None of that "I'm full" nonsense. He teases, mimicking my manner of speech as he places down the loaded plate. Despite eating quite well the previous night, for some reason I feel quite hungry, and I dig in with little to no objections. We enjoy our breakfast together, with me trying to prod him for additional information every now and then, but he dismisses all attempts with simple, "You'll see." It's clear he's as eager and excited to show me around as much as I'm eager to finally see the world outside of this village. Not that it didn't grow on me. Here in this cottage, listening to gentle wind and crackling of fire, nestled into the delectable smell of bacon and eggs, I feel truly at home. Halfway through our meal, a knock comes to the door and Ranoc rushes to open them. That must be Verissa. He mutters, wiping his muzzle clean of egg yolk and pulling on the door handle. I don't have long. She states plainly, walking in and placing her bag onto the table with a soft thud. Got that stuff you asked for, a phial of honey and ginger root in case he gets a fever. I watch as she deposits aforementioned items onto the wooden top with a risen brow. Me? Either of you. She corrects herself awkwardly. But considering your lack of fur, my money's on you getting ill. I also have elderflower and coriander for pain relief and inflammation, as well as lichen salve for any open wounds. That's a lot of stuff you've brought us. I flash my brows, returning to my meal. Better safe than sorry, I say. I guess. I appreciate their protectiveness, so I won't argue, but this feels slightly over the top. If you end up using the ginger root, I expect you to buy it back at the market once you get to Strandbard. This stuff isn't exactly common, nor cheap. Of course. Ugh, you both reek of lavender. Quite potently, might I add. She says with an odd suspicion in her voice, narrowing her eyes as if demanding an explanation. As someone came into my house and peppered it with dried florets, stinking up the whole place. I didn't have time to clear them out, so we ended up smelling like perfumed pounces. Ranoc beats me to it, causing Verissa to raise her brow even higher. Funny you should say that. Someone raided my cottage as well. Her voice is somber, and she looks around in deep concern. He stole a bunch of stuff, my entire lavender supply with it. Why would someone steal your lavender only to dump it in our place? Good question. The female nods, gazing at Ranoc expectantly. Did they take anything? Not that I could tell. And I assume you couldn't identify them by scent either. Not over this damned smell. My wolf nearly growls, and she nods in fearful agreement. That's what I thought. Lavender has a potent fragrance, good for masking scent. At least you slept well. Wait, what do you mean? That last part caught me off guard. Lavender is a medicinal herb. It calms and relaxes. That's why I added it to your soap. You are a bundle of nerves. If you spend a night surrounded by its scent, it will send you into a deep, undisturbed sleep. I often use it myself to enter a meditative state. You don't say. I mutter, increasingly convinced that yesterday's break-in wasn't as innocent as initially thought. Was Andal really responsible for my nightly trip? The idea did cross my mind, but that would mean he's in league with the Whispers, or worse yet, he's the Whispers himself. Then again, lavender was a key of my escape from that nightmare realm, so is it all just a coincidence? Or is he just this incompetent? I wrestle with those questions only to be brought back to here and now by Verissa's gentle paw landing on my shoulder. Is everything alright? I think so. Just a bit spooked that two people had their houses broken into. Ranoc tells me it's not a common occurrence around here. Not at all. Defiling someone's den is a grievous transgression. Wolves were banished for less. I think it's Tano trying to fuck with me. No. Verissa shakes her head softly, and I almost audibly agree with her. Say what you will, but Tano respects your boundaries, and he would never ignore the sanctity of his shaman's household. This here is a work of an unhinged wolf with a death wish on his head. You mean to say it's Andalt? She closes her eyes and nods solemnly. Why would he start shit with me? He knows I have no patience for games. Might be because Kalen stays with you. I honestly don't know what's going on with him. You think you and Tano have bad blood? I never spoke to that wolf after his outburst at my anointment. I saw him once observing me from a distance. I decided to pitch in. No need to live in uncertainty when we can all collaborate our stories. I also know he was snooping around the cottage a few nights back when you were away. How do you know? I just do. I shrug. With what Verissa said, I grow more and more confident that Tano's being honest with me. At least to a point. I'm not about to break his confidence. That bastard! Ranoc growls nastily, squeezing his fists in anger. What game is he playing at? I wouldn't know, but I also wouldn't join it either. The female places her comforting paws on both of our chests. Andalt is a few peas short of a stew. We have more important things to deal with than his misguided antics. But if he broke into our homes... He continues to sneer, but the female cuts him off. So what of it? He stole some herbs and made your house smell nice. She rolls her eyes, splaying her arms in clear annoyance. Look, I have wounded to tend to, and I must prepare for the howl on top of that. I'm to lead the ceremonies, which, considering my lack of training, is a lot of responsibility for someone my age. Her voice carries an obvious strain, and Ranoc looks at her worriedly, causing the female to sigh and give him a soft, encouraging smile in turn. I'm sorry, please, I didn't mean it like that. I can manage. But we all have our own responsibilities to tend to. You need to get to Strandbard and secure supplies. She falls silent, grasping at her elbows with one paw and reluctantly looking to the side. I'm working with weeds here. I had to patch them up on mushrooms and moonshine. We need real medicine. The female stresses, facing my wolf with determination. We need salves and potions from the Tigery apothecaries. The old man left our stocks dangerously low on anything remotely useful. I was this close to amputating Enya's arm. Thankfully it didn't come to that, as she's a stubborn little bitch. Verissa smiles teasingly, almost as if trying to encourage herself as much as us. But she cracked her fang while biting on a leather strap as I was setting her bones back in place. I can't work under these conditions. If there is a war coming, I'll be as useful to the tribe in healing capacity as Volgor is. In fact, I almost considered sending for him yesterday. She cringes, obviously not at the idea of him aiding her, but at what would he aid her in? The image of him chopping someone's arm off causes me to shudder. I meant to be a healer, but I'm reduced to a role of a butcher, or worse yet, a torturer. That's why I don't think a grief-stricken wolf sulking in the woods is our primary concern. You're right, as usual. Ranoc responds almost begrudgingly, and I smile. It still doesn't sit right with me. If Andal becomes unpredictable, he's a problem for another day. I still hope he'll come around. We all do. I can't imagine what Tybalt must be going through. The wolf sighs and takes a deep chug of beer. As the saying goes, sow your seed far and wide lest you end up empty-handed. That is, if you intend to have pups. She darts her gaze towards me, but I don't think Ranoc noticed. He only laughs, rubbing the back of his neck awkwardly. Of course I do. That is also a problem for another day. Smooth save, I think. Anyway, as I said, I can't stay long. I wish you a safe journey. The female comes closer and places her paws on her chest once again. The moon goddess watches over you, both of you. She says that more in a form of a blessing, which I assume it is. As she walks towards the door, she comes to a stop and looks back towards us with a rather troubled gaze. I know this must be hard for you, but you'll find a way. She says reluctantly, and I look to Ranoc, whose entire expression shifted. He's serious and solemn. I know how to get there. I've traveled that path once before. Indeed. Yo, did Siri just fucking activate? Hold on. Hold on. Oh my god. It did. Siri literally activated. Oh my god. This shit is hilarious. Siri activated on my phone. And it was hilarious. The female narrows her brows and gives a nervous tail flick before stepping out. You'll be fine, Caitlin. What was that about? I asked, rather taken by that ominous exchange. She's always doubting my ability, treating me as if I were a pup. His voice sounds very sour, and I almost want to pat him in sympathy. I doubt that's true. She just worries. Well, encouragement would have been better than nagging. What she said was technically an encouragement. Then why didn't it feel like it? Relax, Mr. Grumpy Pants. It's your hunger talking. I smile softly, nodding towards our unfinished breakfast. I'm not entirely sure what else to tell him, but before I make up my mind, he's back digging at his meal. I decide not to interrupt him. His mood is rather testy, and we should be leaving shortly anyway. I'm slightly troubled by Verissa's behavior near the end, though. There was something off about the way she looked at me, almost as if she was sad. Or perhaps I'm just reading into things. After all, she's been through hell of her very own. Oh god, she knows about Ranoc's quirk. She knows. We spend the rest of the time in a relative silence. Once we finish with the food, we empty our mugs and I clean up. Can't leave dirty dishes for a whole week, which I'm told is as long as this trip is going to take. While I ensure nothing is going to get moldy or attract insects, Ranoc packs the remainder of our stuff and dons his gear. When that's done, I pick up one of Ranoc's spare cloaks and put it on, securing my new dandelion in its pin. It does clash a bit with the dress, but it will protect my skin from bruising against the leather straps of the backpack. Now I look like a fancy hobbit. I require the wolf's help to put on the backpack, grunting audibly when he lets it rest freely on my shoulders. You'll get used to it. Not a comforting thought, if I'm to be honest. It is time we get some muscle on those bones. He winks coyly and opens the door. He invites me to go outside with a gracious paw wave, and I take one last look across the cottage. I'll miss this place, that's for sure. But my mood is lifted by a simple thought that it'll be a journey there and back again. It's a dangerous business, my dear Frodo, going out the door. I muse playfully, walking through the doorframe and causing Ranoc to blink. Frodo? You step onto the road, and if you don't keep your feet, there's no telling where you might be swept off to. I didn't realize you had a poetic bent. He chuckles while closing the door behind him, and I shrug with a soft smile. Plenty of time to learn more about each other on the open road. Very true. The wolf nods, and we set off towards the villa, where we're to pick up our instructions and the last pieces of luggage. We barely left the village, and I can already feel the straps dig into my flesh. The backpack sits heavily, pushing me harder into the road. My feet are killing me, but the dress is my main concern. With the way the straps brush tightly against my skin, I worry it might tear. Do you really think it's a good idea for me to travel like this? I pull out the rim of my dress with a rather troubled expression. It might be comfortable, but I'm not sure if it's durable enough. Are you kidding? The wolf snorts. It's silk. I don't think there is a more durable cloth out there. Besides, it's not like we have any other options. I'm not about to enter a tigery town with a ragged human in tow. Yeah, that wouldn't be a good look for us, would it? Speaking of being ragged, do you think I could get some shoes for the journey? I stop for a moment and wiggle my left foot in jest. I can hardly imagine walking a few days straight barefoot. What's shoes? Yet again, the wolf throws me off with, in hindsight, an obvious question. Okay. How do you know what shoes even are? Well, it's sort of clothing you put on your feet. Whatever for? To protect them from injury. There's lots of sticks and pebbles on the ground. I yelp uncomfortably as I step onto one such unlucky stone, causing the wolf to snort. Vol's right, you really are a flower. Wolves have been walking barepaw without injuring their pads since the awakening. You just need to step carefully and softly. He tries to lighten his tone so that his comment doesn't come across as chastising, but it's hard not to take it as such. Besides, with your paws covered, how would you feel the vibrations of the ground? It's quite important for alertness. I wouldn't, because I don't. I'm not a wolf. I mumble inside offense. I get that despite him being humanoid, our point of reference couldn't be more alien to one another, but I don't think I'm being unreasonable. Perhaps I should get some thick cloth to wrap my feet in? This time it's he who stops, giving me a rather startled look. I'm telling you, it's better than me cutting my feet on something and having you carry me the rest of the way. This little threat seems to have done the trick as he simply nods in reluctant concession. Humans are curious creatures, aren't they? He shakes his head, but his voice carries both amusement and a twinge of awe, empowered by his loveful gaze and a gentle tail swish. Well, you would know best. I try to contain a blush and get us on the move again. It doesn't take long to arrive at the fork where the side path leads towards the villa. We pass between the columns and soon enough we're greeted by the meticulously maintained garden. To my surprise, I can see Bramble and Leaf scurry about, with the female bunny giving me suspicious gazes as she cuts into the hedge with her scissor. I notice a particular unruly branch she's measuring, but when she's set to cut it, she diverts her eyes to me. Chomp, and the imperfection is gone. Her intensive gaze and satisfaction on the muzzle leave no doubt she's imagining my head to be said twig. I cringe, moving ever so slightly closer to my wolf. He pays the bunnies no mind and leads us through the porticus deep into the shade of the atrium. Again, I can't help but gawk open-mouthed at the magnificence of this room. I swear to God, I can't speak English. I have to say, I love the spot so much. I utter quietly, drawing his approving smile. It's so peaceful, and the light dances beautifully on the water's surface. Yeah, I like it too. I used to play here with wooden boats as a pup, imagining the pool to be Lake Tremlin. His soft gaze ventures to the water, and he disturbs its surface with the paw, causing the nearby water lilies to bounce merrily. I also used to come to think and rest here. It's a good room, but often quite busy. He turns back towards the gardens. This being entrance and all. I still can't believe you. I feigned some offense, giving him a challenging look. Criticizing me for being uppity while you lived in a freaking palace. Lived being the operative tense. He winks and bops his head inquisitively towards the main hall. I nod and we proceed to enter. Finally, I was about to send someone to fetch you. The chief grumbles in annoyance as we enter the great hall. He's seated with Vithra at the top table, looking over a stack of papers. I take an informed guess that those are the letters they were talking about last night. Howl summons. I'm sorry, I had to find all the travel gear and ensure it's in working order. Ranoc responds, patting the backpack I'm carrying and drawing an audible oof from me as I'm reminded of the load. When we come to a stop in front of the table, I take liberty in dropping the bag onto the ground, and both wolves look out with a slight bewilderment. Seems a bit much, doesn't it? Why are you taking the tent? They echo my very own concerns from just a few moments ago, and I look to my wolf with a subtle, what did I say face. Well, the human is furless and there are still cold nights ahead. Last thing I want is for him to catch something before we even get there. He responds awkwardly, causing the two older wolves to exchange confused gazes. Thankfully, a side door cracking open draws their attention, and I see Trist walk in with a silver pitcher. We exchange cordial gazes, and I wink to him as he passes by. Thank you, but you can take it away. We have a long day ahead of us, and we need to maintain clear heads. The old wolf dismisses the bunny, causing Vithra to shudder. Come on, not even a little drinky. I'm parched here, and I have a massive headache. He pleads, causing the bunny to stop and observe their ensuing exchange for further instruction. This is a sober job, Vithra. Tell that to Anel. That crazy old minx nearly drank me under the table. You shouldn't have been drinking last night. The chief sounds unamused and the brown male protests. She doesn't listen. She asks for a drink, and when she's done with it, she already forgot she had one. I hope she's fine. She's not 80 anymore. You can't treat her like a drinking buddy. He utters through an exasperated sigh, rubbing the ridge above his eyes. Honestly, you should have seen her in the morning. She got up like nothing happened and went home. Not alone, I hope. Of course not. Who do you think I am? Vithra scoffs in evident offense. I asked Cora to escort her. Good. I just noticed this. The chief, Ranoc, has like a little heart right there. He has a little heart. You need to be careful with her is all I'm saying. We can't afford to lose Anel before the Howl. Honestly, Ranoc, it'll take more than a bottle of moonshine to kill her. And I'm not about to chastise a nearly century-old female telling her what she can and cannot do. Either way, there will be no drinking. The chief again swishes his hand at Trist, and the bunny turns on his heel in quite a surprise. I guess stuff is really serious if they forego the booze. But it was amusing listening to Anel's antics. So, she's nearly 100 years old. That is quite impressive. I cannot help but wonder what she was like in her youth. It must seem to her like a lifetime away. Father, I was wondering if perhaps Trist could aid Kaelin in procuring one last thing we need for our journey. Ranoc steps forward, drawing their expecting gazes, and the chief snaps his fingers, causing the bunny to freeze. Oh? And what would that be? He needs something to cover his feet with. His underpaws are unnaturally soft and prone to injury. I don't think I follow. The older male narrows his eyes, clearly getting impatient with what he perceives as a silly request. Trust me, it'll make our journey go much smoother. Very well. The chief sighs and waves his paw both at me and the bunny, allowing us to disappear into the side room. What was that about? Trist asks with a rather confused expression. Can you arrange for some robust cloth for me, or a thick piece of leather would do? Whatever for. I need to make some bandages to wrap around my feet. Did you cut yourself? No, but I need to protect my soles on the journey. Humans usually don't walk around barefoot. I say, realizing how silly it must sound through his widening smirk. That's a bit fruity. He stifles a chuckle, looking at me with pity. The road will be long and most likely covering difficult terrain. My skin bruises easily. I'll see what I can find. Would linen be enough? The bunny proposes and a nod eagerly. It would. Bring anything you've got. Wait here, then. He pats my shoulder and leaves through one of the side doors leading deeper into the complex. I hang around the door, listening on to the conversation, but I'm not getting much out of it. The chief and Vithra simply list the supplies Ranoc has to secure. Aside from grains, they also need steel, and a lot of it. I'm also relieved to hear them speak of medical supplies, which which apparent lack troubled me deeply after the conversation with Verissa. Before I can full on into my Snoopy mode, Brown Bunny returns with my query. Here you go. He lays down an assortment of items on the side table. I found some burlap sacks. They're roughly the size of your feet. The bunny hoists them up in the air and closes one eye as to measure them against me. I also have some bandages and the leather you asked for. Thanks, Trist. I owe you one. 2, actually. He winks, clearly hinting at my scavenger hunt from yesterday, and is simply not in agreement. At first I wasn't sure how to go about this, but eventually I decided to trace the outline of my foot on the leather piece. The bunny observes as I cut out the shape with the knife, careful not to cut myself whenever the blade slips against the stubborn pelt. Once I have 2 flappy soles, I scooch myself onto the counter and try to affix them to the underside of my feet with tight bandaging. In this I needed some help, and Trist aids me as best he can. It takes a short while, but eventually everything is neatly in place and I jump off from the table. It feels amazing not having to endure the cold stone underfoot. My beaming expression draws an amused scoff from the bunny. I must admit, this looks rather peculiar. Trist mutters, watching as I put on one of the burlap sacks. It's quite shallow and the tie handle secures it tightly around my ankle, almost like an old-timey shoe. Well, it's not the comfiest type of footwear, but it does the job. With any luck, I'll find a cobbler and strand bar and I'll be able to get myself a proper pair. At the very least, they must have sandals. I think out loud, causing the bunny to laugh. You see the darndest of things. You almost sound like my Nana. Her mind was never quite there, but near the end, she was blabbering nonsense just like you. I'll miss your snarky ass. I smirk at him coyly. I won't miss yours. He teases right back. Your sass with the elder is almost a beggar's belief. Maybe once you're back, I'll finally get to enjoy your execution. Maybe. I wink, restraining myself from returning the joke. Any sort of playful threat of harm would be inappropriate right now towards the bunny. He notices my slight apprehension and waves his paw at me. Don't. He mutters sternly. I don't need your pity, just keep in mind what we talked about. I nod. I won't. Not after what I heard yesterday. Trist gives me a half smile and sighs. Just don't die out there, you little freak. And deprave you of a front row seat to watch me draw my final breath? Never. I laugh as he bobs my shoulder encouragingly and I decide to return to the main hall. I've been absent long enough. It's amazing how used I got to the soft slapping of my feet across the wooden stone. That sound is now replaced with a subtle ruffling of burlap with each of my steps. I walk up to the center of the room, drawing immediate attention from the chief and Vither, who look at me with risen brows. Now that is the most unusual thing I've seen the entire year, and that includes Volgor nearly getting neutered by Verissa. Hold up. Wow. He's going to be a laughingstock. The chief doesn't mirror his friend's levity and gives me a rather aggravated look. I bet where he comes from it's quite normal, otherwise he wouldn't need it. Ranoc tries to reason on my behalf and Vither shrugs. In all honesty, I think we've wasted enough time on that twerp. The chief nods in agreement. Find out about it soon. About how Verissa almost neutered Vither. Do you have my letter of recommendation? Here it is, sealed and ready. He passes a sizable envelope to the chief, and the old male nods in satisfaction. Good. Hold it right there. We all jolt up to attention at the now startlingly familiar screeching. Oh, for the love of Aluna. Cut cute, Varrock. Real cute. The pudgy female wheezes on her way up towards the table. Did you really think I would miss this? Why wasn't I consulted on Ranoc's apparent diplomatic mission? I'm seriously considering bringing back the day guards at the door. People come in and out of this place as if it were an inn. Oh, the chief's scar. Yeah, it's shaped like a little heart. It's probably a very serious injury, but it's shaped like a little heart, and it's adorable. The chief mutters to Vither, paying the old hag no mind. Well, but she would not be ignored, and Vither leans to his side, resting against the armrest. Not our fault you stormed off before the meeting ended. Or perhaps you waited for the very last moment to bring the matter up. Really, sending your son to beg and grovel for scraps from your master's table? She takes on a more contemptuous tone than usual, and the brown male scoffs. Can hardly call it begging if we're paying for it. Say what you will, but we need supplies. I nod internally, watching as Ranoc visibly tenses up. He really hates that fat bitch, and with good reason. Better safe than sorry, that's something even you can't argue against. And this perfect waste of tribe's gold is being safe? Ha! First, we need to get the trade rights. The chief shrugs, sorting through the papers in front of him. As it stands, our wolves are not allowed to use Strandbard's market for anything other than personal use. That's where the groveling will come in handy. My, you must really despise your son to submit him to such humiliation. I shudder, hearing a clear growl escape Ranoc's throat, and the female gives him a cautious look, followed by a few steps away. My son will do what must be done for our people, and I think it's past time he took on a more official role. That is to say, if you hope to remain in your seat. Retain your seat. She continues her taunting, but her gaze now ventures to me, and I roll my eyes. Why is this naked monkey here? Are you seriously thinking I would let you send him off? Just like that? Send him off? The chief blinks in confusion and looks to Vithar, who only shrugs. Oh, cut the act. I know what you're up to. Getting rid of the evidence just before the howl is exactly the sort of underpawness I would expect of you. He is Ranoc's attendant. The old male reiterates calmly. He's just carrying his load, and what is to prevent your son from misplacing that little whelp somewhere in that accursed tigery town? His whim, I suppose. Vithar shrugs indifferently. Ranoc seems awfully keen on the bugger. Spare me. You know I will press the issue at the howl and have the human disappear. And having the human disappear would make any attack on your son moot. You two have planned this. Her voice bellows across the marbled hall as she thumps her fat foot against the floor. You think your son will take your place, and you want to see your scheming little harlot sit beside him. Not a first time a scheming little harlot would align herself with this chair, is it? Vithar quips at her through a snarl, and the comment feels somewhat personal as Aldous just looks at him dumbfounded. I don't think there's anything we could say to convince you otherwise, so I don't see a point to this conversation. The chief spreads his arms in defeat, but Vithar gazes at her challengingly. Let us assume the worst. What? What are you talking about? She narrows her brows, the fat of her face squinting her eyes so much she might as well have closed them. Let us assume Ranoc will misplace, as you put it so nicely, the human in Strandbard. What of it? You have witnesses to confirm he was here. No one is going to deny his actual existence. His whereabouts are of no relevance to his case, are they? The brown male states, and Aldris clearly struggles with the proposition. Damn it, even Anel made me do it. He must... She's stumped. Her argument proved flawed. There would have to be a cross-examination. Cross-examination? The chief scoffs in amusement. He's a daft mute, can't even speak a damn word. Might as well question trees. But what about his debt then? She spats angrily, looking to me with determination. His debt has to be paid off. Very well. What is it worth? What? The pudgy female blinks in confusion, taken aback by the question. The 2 weeks he's been here, what is it worth to you? What sort of trickery is this? We're playing ball. Vithar shrugs yet again. It's clear they're done with her. I really have more important things to do right now than quibble with you over some petty nonsense. Everyone lost their moon-damned mind the moment this ape waltzed into our village. That includes you. I smile, seeing her at a loss of words. It's clear it's not a sensation she's familiar with, as she quickly switches to anger and waves her finger at them as if they were naughty children. Now listen here. We are listening. You're just not giving us an answer. What is it worth to you? The brown male reiterates, and she darts her gaze back to the chief, who leans in with a smile. You're an elder. You have as much a right to dictate what rate as we do. Give us your estimate. Silence takes over the room as she carefully thinks this over. Every now and then, she looks to me and to Ranoc, who clearly has a troubled expression, and this gives her an idea. 1 silver a day. Whoa, hold on a moment. Vithar raises his paw in protest, but the chief nods with satisfaction. Done. What? You can't be serious. That's extortionate. His surprise equals that of the fat bitch, although I am a bit lost in this conversation. What does it matter? When Ranoc will return with the boy in tow, let it be even 2 silver a day. You're absolutely right. Make it 2 then. She smiles nastily, certain she has called the chief's bluff, but the male nods in agreement, completely throwing her off. So be it. That brings the total to 3 talents, am I right? The old male looks to her expectantly, and she nods reluctantly. Perfect. He pats the table. Should the human vanish in a poof of smoke, that's exactly what I'll expect my son to repay. Seems a fair price for his mistake of bringing him in the first place, wouldn't you agree? I might not know what game you two are playing, but know this, no amount of trickery is going to save you face at the howl. The pudgy female sneers only to draw an indifferent shrug from him. Maybe, but I really don't have time for this. Thank you for the honor of your visit, but now be so kind and get the hell out of my home. The chief nods towards the door, but she protests. I want to be present for the handling of the treasury. That is none of your concern. The chief can dispense with it as leisure. I want to know how much. You'll be able to find that out at a later point. Vither cuts her off. I assume you're able to deduce how much is missing. His taunts don't sit well with her and she begins to simmer, but before she can explode, the chief stands up and speaks with a slightly risen tone. You have tested the limits of my patience, and I'm afraid we're at a breaking point. I won't repeat myself. Leave my home, or I'll have Vither summon guards and drag you through the courtyard like a trespasser you are. I can see her clenching her fist in anger as she struggles to stifle a growl, but eventually she turns around and storms off at as brisk pace as when she came in. Once she's gone, the chief sighs and sits down, looking towards the brown male. I wasn't joking about the guards, by the way. Oh, I know. Vither nods. I want 2 wolves standing at the entry day and night, controlling the ingress and egress of people. No matter who comes, they're to report to Trist, and Trist is to check back with me. Unless it's either of those two. He growls softly under his breath. As far as they're concerned, I might be dead. I don't want them here uninvited. Understandable. Anyway, where were we? Ah, yes, the letter. The chief bops it in turn towards Ranoc, who approaches and takes hold of it. I'm not sure how much my name is worth in Strandbard nowadays, but I hope that should a need arise, it'll be of some use to you. I'll try not to diminish it, Father. What could be worse than obscurity? The old male chuckles, pushing a large wooden box towards my wolf. Here, take a good look. Guard it with your life. He says rather sternly, and I observe as Ranoc carefully lifts up the lid. Almost like in a movie, the hall floods with a golden shimmer empowered by the sunlight creeping in from various windows. Holy shit! I find myself exclaiming at Ranoc, spurred by the sight of the gold more than I could have ever imagined. Yo! It's all arranged into slender, glimmering bars adorned with a familiar Celtic knot motif, packed tight inside the chest. I'm sure I would have been utterly terrified at the slip of tongue had I not still reeled from the glimpse of unimaginable riches glowing right in front of me. I'll pretend I didn't hear that. The chief grumbles, narrowing his eyes at me as I cover my mouth. Puts a dent in the whole noble theory if a mere case of ingots gets him this excited. Vither adds rather sternly, causing Ranoc to finally flinch in my defense. I guess the wolf was equally as shocked that I spoke up as I currently am. It's just a phrase. He's not dumb after all. He's just picking things up with each day. Precisely. The advisor cuts Ranoc off, looking at me with the same penetrative gaze I've seen before. Least said, soonest mended. But the chief dismisses the whole thing with a wave of his paw, and I can almost feel myself and Ranoc internally releasing deep sighs of relief. Vither nods at his friend's wishes and simply regards the case of gold onto the table. There's 32 bars. Altogether, I'd say 1,300 talents. I still think it's a bit much. The chief's voice is filled with concern as he reluctantly glances over the treasure. I wouldn't say so. Perfect amount to establish credit, especially if we want to have a favorable accommodation. Very well. The old male nods and looks to his son sternly. Deposit at the town hall. The treasurer should provide you with coin in turn. Spend it wisely, as we'll expect full accounting upon your return. In other words, don't be too frivolous. Vither glances towards me with an oddly serious expression, as if he was implying something. Wouldn't dream of it. Ranoc responds almost immediately, clearly offended at the suggestion, and his father nods, satisfied with the answer. Right, do you remember what we talked about? Yes. My wolf responds quietly, and I dart my gaze between them. So, you don't need a refresher. The chief asks, forcing a solemn shake of Ranoc's head. Good, you know what to do. Doesn't shock me. I'll see the magistrate and secure their trade rights. You better do, otherwise we're fucked. Vither shifts uncomfortably in his chair, looking towards the pantry. With a clap of his paws, the brown male draws Trist back into the main hall. Now. He nods to the bunny, and we both look in surprise as he quickly rushes back into the side room, only to emerge with 2 sizable linen parcels. Cor insisted on preparing your provisions. Should last you 2 nights, in case you come up empty-handed. That's very thoughtful of her. Ranoc takes hold of the packages, echoing my very own sentiment. Indeed, she's very taken by you. Do not disappoint her. Wouldn't dream of it. Good, that's it then. The chief rubs his paws together and shoos us away. Off you go and make us all proud. My wolf nods and approaches the table, shutting close the chest and locking it securely with a pad. To my surprise, the box has a leather strap attached to it, which allows it to be thrown over one's shoulder and carried like a side bag. My chief. Ranoc takes a deep bow, then nodding slightly towards the brown male, and I decide to do the same. Vither. We back away slowly from the hall, only turning on our backs once we're in the atrium proper. We're gonna leave off here for tonight. A slip of tongue. A slip of tongue is what caused our secret to be found out, and they chose to ignore it. Because I still got shit that I gotta do tonight, so stay safe, have a good night, and I actually won't see you tomorrow.